Reading books is a way to go on an adventure in your mind. Join us today as I talk about our favorite books to read aloud with the family. We love to read aloud, and we really love to read series aloud. There's something special about reading a series with kids where you see the characters evolve and grow and change over time as they get older and have new experiences. So several of our favorite series are the Little House on the Prairie series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. If you have not read those books, even as an adult, I recommend you go back and read them. I read them especially when Soren was a baby and Arden was about 2 to 3. We read through the entire series, and then we went back and we've read it several times since then. It was one of my favorite series when I was growing up, and what I found was that the kids really loved it. Our favorite book was actually Farmer Boy, which is an outtake of Laura's husband, Almanzo, his growing up years. So if you've never read those books with young children, I highly recommend them. My kids would be happy to read them now at 9 and 12, my younger boys. It's just a really fun story that is told through the eyes of the person who lived it. It's not completely 100% autobiographical, but it's based on her life, the life of Laura Ingalls Wilder. The next series I'd recommend would be Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. She also has another series called Emily of New Moon, which was one of my favorites. That one's only 3 books, but the Anne of Green Gables series is, I think it's 8 books. It goes all the way from when Anne is first adopted, all the way up through her children getting older. And she just has such a way with her imagination. This is the first time reading them out loud to my boys at 9 and 12, and they're really enjoying it. They chuckle and we wonder what's going to happen next to Anne. What sort of scrape is she going to get into, and how is she going to get out of it? Another one of our favorite authors is Jean Craighead George. She's a naturalist, and she grew up surrounded by animals and climbing trees to look at owls and check out their nests and all sorts of things like that. And so she writes books about animals and people from such an interesting perspective. Take those off. So 2 of my favorite series by her are Julie of the Wolves. That's a trilogy, and it's about a Native Alaskan girl who becomes friends with a wolf pack for her survival up in Alaska. And that book is just so beautiful. And then there's 2 other books about Julie and her pack of wolves. There is a bit in the beginning of the first book that might not be appropriate for younger people. It relates to how Julie ends up out on the tundra by herself. She also wrote a trilogy called My Side of the Mountain, which is about a boy who goes off out, makes himself a hollowed out treehouse, and lives with his bird Frightful, who helps him catch a food to eat, and he lives there on his own. I can't remember how old he is when he first starts, but that is a beautiful series as well. And again, there's 3 books in that series talking about this boy and his bird Frightful. Again, beautifully done with the interaction between humans and nature. So that is definitely another series you should check out. Those are both books from like the 1960s and the 1970s, both of those series, but still pertinent today because they're just so beautiful and relate to a childhood that is untouched by technology. Harry Potter is another one of our favorite series. Our boys have read it over and over, and we've read it out loud, and then we've watched the movies. All in all, we prefer the books. There is so much scope for the imagination there. Just imagining how things look and what it would be like to, be transported through a fireplace. They're a lot of fun to read together. The Giver series by Lois Lowry is another one of my favorites. It's definitely something for older kids. I think in public school they read it in like 7th and 8th grade. But fantastic books, really gives you something to talk about. And I just loved reading those aloud and really enjoyed them myself, and have read them several times over on my own as well. The Hatchet series, really great. That's by Gary Paulson. The first book starts out with this little boy who's in an airplane crash, and up in, I forget if he's over Canada or over Alaska. I think he's over Canada. And his plane crashes. It was just like a 2-seater plane, so it was just he and a pilot. The pilot dies and he needs to survive on his own. And so it's a story again about surviving in nature and the things that this boy realizes as he's out there on his own. There are 4 books in this series, beautiful stories of survival and of reaching deep when you don't think that you can do something and finding out that you can. We also love The Hobbit, although I have to say I did find The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogies to be very difficult for me personally to read out loud. I have a hard time saying all the names out loud. But again, it's like good versus evil and overcoming hard things and realizing that you are capable of more than you thought you were. We love those kinds of stories. So anyway, highly recommend all of the series that I just mentioned. Some of them are geared more towards younger kids and some of them are geared towards slightly older children, but many of them can cross over and be wonderful for an entire family. I have right now kids ranging from 9 to 18. Our 18-year-old is not at home, but I read a lot of these books out loud when my 18-year-old was younger. And so consequently his younger brothers heard them when they were very young. Like The Giver, we've read that series a few times because as the younger kids got older, I read it again. I read them to the whole family and found them to be like great sources of conversation and making kids think a little bit. I'm going to put links to all of these books in the description box through our Amazon account. So if you guys are interested in looking at these books or reading a more in-depth description about it, and go to the Amazon link and you will get a description of the book. I have always loved reading from the time I was really little, and I'm so excited that my boys love it now too and love stories and hearing them, and they enjoy like telling stories and all of that, and I just find it such a beautiful way to communicate. I hope you guys all enjoy these books as much as we have, and if you have suggestions for books that we should try, please put them in the comments because we would love to try them out. Hit that subscribe button so you can join us on some more adventures and see what else we're up to.